Chapter 1. Reborn. You are listening at FameTV.info. Chapter 1. War Rebirth. Xiao Yuan thought it was thunder, but when he opened his eyes, he realized that he was wrong. A round of shells exploded around, smoke and flames rose into the sky, the ground trembled like an earthquake, and the Stuka bomber roared and dived in the sky. What happened? Xiao Yuan's first reaction was to get up to check the situation, but before he could stand up straight, he was thrown down by a figure. Get down! The one who threw Xiao Yuan down was a bearded man with a dusty face and some blood stains on his face. Are you crazy? The bearded man yelled at Xiao Yuan, stay on your stomach. Xiao Yuan was confused. He remembered that he was still skiing in Logoi Mountain just now, and now he was stuck in this strange place. Xiao Yuan looked around. He very much hoped that all of this was fake, but the whistling sound of the shells, the swish sound of the shrapnel piercing the void, and the flesh and blood that was blown up into the air and then split into several pieces fell down. They all told Xiao Yuan that all this is true. Where is this? Xiao Yuan asked the bearded man like crazy. What happened? War, Shulka. The bearded man replied. The Germans are coming. Shulka, war, German. Xiao Yuan looked at the bearded man, then at himself, and was surprised to find that both of them were wearing the uniform of the Soviet Red Army during World War II, as were the others around them. Suddenly another person flew over. To be precise, it was not a person, because his feet had been blown away by shells, his whole body was covered with blood, and his eyes were full of pain and despair, but under the desire to survive, he with only a few fingers left, he stretched out tremblingly towards Xiao Yuan, but he spat out a mouthful of blood when he wanted to shout something. No, that /s not true. Xiao Yuan didn't dare to open his eyes. He was frightened by this scene, but Xiao Yuan also didn't dare to close his eyes. Because he was worried that a shell would tear him to pieces in the next second, although he knew that nothing could be changed even if he opened his eyes. Xiao Yuan only knew to curl up in the soil, exhausted all his strength to bury himself to hide from the world, and unconsciously let out a cry that he didn't even know what it was. I don't know how long it took, but the sound of the artillery finally stopped, replaced by wailing and calling for help one after another. Xiao Yuan thought that everything was over, so he took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down, but Xiao Yuan is still too naive after all. Germans are coming. Xiao Yuan poked his head out to follow the call, and sure enough, he saw a group of soldiers coming from a distance. They held rifles in their hands and leaped forward cautiously in skirmish formation. It is particularly dazzling in the gunpowder smoke. At first Xiao Yuan was still ignorant, until the bearded man next to him nervously picked up the rifle in his hand. This is war, and the enemy is walking in front of him, and there will be a life and death fight between them, although whoever I don't know anyone. No, this is not my war. Xiao Yuan felt that he was the most wronged one, because he did not belong to any side, not even to this time and space. So naturally, he shrank his head and hoped that he could wait until the battle was over. If his feet were not weak or he knew that it was more dangerous to run out of the trench, he would have escaped long ago. An officer wearing a red collar badge noticed this when passing by, so he stopped, gave Xiao Yuan a cold look, and ordered. Pick up your gun, soldier. No, comrade instructor. The bearded man put the rifle in Xiao Yuan's hand and explained. He was only slightly injured, take a rest. The instructor didn't answer, he just took out the Soviet soldier /S card from the upper pocket of Xiao Yuan military uniform, opened it, glanced at it, and quickly stuffed it back. Is it Shulka? I remember the name. The instructor glanced at Shulka again and said, if I see you put your rifle aside and shrink your head next time, then I will use it at /S calling you. As he spoke, he raised the Tokarev pistol in his hand. Xiao Yuan admitted that he was shocked by the instructor at this moment, not only because of the words the instructor said, but also because of the indifferent expression of the instructor when he said these words. Just like shooting a soldier is a trivial matter, later, Xiao Yuan realized that like should not be used here, but should be used. From this moment, Xiao Yuan realized one thing. This is a battlefield, and it has its own set of rules. If he wants to jump out of this rule, he will lose his life because of it at any time. Thinking of this, Xiao Yuan could only silently raise the rifle in his hand and aim into the distance, but at this time the bearded man reminded. God, Shulka, your gun hasn't /T been loaded yet, you /T even forget this. Xiao Yuan really forgot. As a senior military fan, he practiced shooting in modern times, but now he realizes that the shooting range and the battlefield are completely different things. When the rifle was raised again, the enemy was only 500 meters away from the position. The German soldiers looked quite professional. They divided into several teams to cover each other and advanced, and the machine gunners and mortarists occupied the commanding heights and buildings all the way under the cover of infantry. This made Xiao Yuan feel guilty for a while. After all, there are still rookies like him who know nothing in the Soviet Army. 400 meters. An officer stood up slightly with his back leaning against the trench tens of meters away, and shouted loudly with a small horn. Comrades, the Germans attacked us treacherously, and their petty behavior is doomed to failure. Forget everything, soldiers, the trenches are your surest fortresses. But before he finished speaking, a few mortar shells roared in. The officer and several nearby soldiers were thrown into the air and then fell heavily. The officer /S voice revealed his position, and the Germans would not give up. This chanced to hit the morale of the enemy. 300 meters, the footsteps of the German army were clearly audible, but the commander still did not give the order to fire. Xiao Yuan /S breathing became heavier and heavier, and the hand holding the gun broke out in cold sweat at some point that he understood that the commander hoped to bring the enemy closer before fighting. After all, there were many recruits in the Soviet army who were inaccurate in marksmanship, and they would fight randomly if they were far away, but Xiao Yuan knew that this would not work. When he was studying in Russia, he had an in-depth understanding of the Soviet Union /S Great Patriotic War, so he knew the equipment of the enemy and us very well. He knows that the German infantry is equipped with 50 mm mortars, each row is equipped with at least one mortar, and the longest range is 500 meters, for a well-trained German mortar gunner. Within a distance of 300 meters, it is almost impossible to shoot anywhere. This means that the German army can easily use mortars to suppress the firepower of the Soviet army /S machine guns. The fact that military officers bombed the sky is a clear proof. Of course, the commander probably doesn't /T know this, and he even intends to bring the enemy closer. Thinking of this, Xiao Yuan stopped hesitating. He pointed the sight at a German soldier charging forward and pulled the trigger. End of this chapter. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.